Every time you buy a cup of coffee, well, you expect absolute simplicity.
Oh, yeah, completely. It's totally a reflex.
Right. I mean, you tap your card, the barista slides a paper cup across the counter, you take a sip, and you just walk out the door.
And the whole thing takes, what, maybe 15 seconds?
Yeah, exactly. To you, it is just a caffeine run. But beneath the surface of that tiny everyday action, you're actually triggering a massive, invisible web of legal tripwires.
It's a profound illusion of simplicity, really.
Yeah.
I mean, we are wired to view the world through a very physical lens.
You think that just because you are holding the cup, the transaction is over and you are safe.
Right, but the law operates in a completely different dimension. The physical exchange is often, well, it's the least important part of the deal.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because today, our mission is to step into the shoes of an Osmania University law professor.
Oh, wow, that's a rigorous set of shoes to fill.
It really is. We are going to master Unit 4 of a crucial legal syllabus. We're diving deep into the intricacies of the Sale of Goods Act, 1930.
What's fascinating here is that commercial law isn't just, dusty theory. It is the bedrock of our credit-based economy.
So we're decoding the invisible rules governing those everyday actions. Who takes the financial hit when things go wrong, how ownership transfers, and what happens when you buy from a thief.
Yeah, without these rules, global commerce would just instantly collapse into anarchy.
And we are pulling from some incredibly dense legal texts and study materials today.
We are, but the core of all this material is just human behavior. It's about anticipating disaster and fraud and keeping supply chains moving anyway.
Right. So to understand that system, we have to start with the Grand Canyon of commercial law, the massive divide between two concepts that, frankly, most people use interchangeably.
You mean property and possession?
Exactly. To my non-lawyer brain, those are the exact same thing. Like if I am holding my new coffee, I possess it, so it's my property.
And that assumption right there is exactly what gets people into so much trouble. Oh, yeah. In the eyes of the law, those are completely distinct universes. I mean, property refers exclusively to ownership. It's the legal title.
So it's a totally abstract, invisible concept.
Exactly. Whereas possession, on the other hand, is just physical custody. It's your physical control over the atoms that make up the object.
Wow, okay. So the law splits the physical reality from the legal reality. I can own something I don't hold, and I can hold something I don't own.
Yeah, and that split is the beating heart of everything we are covering today. The law demands this rigid distinction because of a foundational principle.
Which is what, exactly?
It's a Latin maxim woven into commerce called res paret domino.
Res paret domino. Okay, and that translates to what?
It translates to risk follows ownership.
Risk follows ownership. So whoever holds that invisible abstract title is the one who bears the ultimate burden if things go wrong.
Right. If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to imagine a disaster scenario, like a warehouse burns to the ground.
Or cargo ship sinks, right?
Exactly. The law needs an immediate binary answer to a really painful question. Who takes the financial hit?
The person who physically possessed the goods or the person who legally owned them?
And the general rule under Section 26 of the Act is that the owner takes the hit. It does not matter if the owner has never even seen the goods in person.
Okay, let me push back on this with a real-world scenario. I want to see just how rigid this rule actually is.
Sure, hit me.
Let's say I go to a high-end electronics store. I'm buying a brand new, ridiculously expensive flat-screen TV. I swipe my credit card.
The receipt prints, the transaction is done.
Right. But the box is massive, and I'm meeting a friend for lunch down the street, so I ask the cashier, hey, can I leave this box behind your counter for an hour?
And they say yes.
Yeah, the cashier says, sure, no problem. But while I'm at the restaurant, completely oblivious, a water pipe bursts in the ceiling of the store.
Oh, no.
It completely destroys the TV sitting behind the counter. So who pays for that? Is it my ruined TV or the store's ruined TV?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but that is your ruined TV.
Wait, really? It's sitting in their store under their broken pipe.
The law does not care about the location of the box. Assuming the transaction was fully completed at the register, the property transferred to you.
The legal title transferred the moment my card was approved.
Exactly. You became the legal owner.
Yeah.
The store merely retained possession. They essentially just became a free storage facility for your property.
That is terrifying. I'm eating my sandwich thinking I had a successful shopping trip, and my legal risk is sitting in a puddle of water.
I know, it feels incredibly unfair to the consumer.
It really does.
But think about the alternative. If risk always stayed with whoever had physical possession, Commerce would be a total nightmare.
Because warehouses would refuse to hold goods for clients.
Exactly. They'd be terrified of assuming massive liability. By separating ownership from possession, the law lets people move and store goods freely.
Without accidentally taking on the financial risk of an item they don't actually own. That makes sense. Which brings up a critical distinction in our source material.
Ah, yes. The difference between an actual sale and an agreement to sell.
Right. So my TV scenario, that was an actual sale.
Yeah, in an actual sale, it is an executed contract. The transfer of the property happens immediately for a price.
The buyer instantly becomes the owner and takes on the risk.
Yep, and the seller instantly gets the right to sue for the money if it hasn't been handed over. It's a done deal, even if delivery is delayed.
But commerce isn't always immediate. What if I am buying something that doesn't even exist yet?
Like what?
Like, what if I go to a custom furniture maker and sign a contract for a dining table that is going to take them 6 months to build?
Okay, then you have entered into an agreement to sell. This is an executory contract.
Executory, meaning the transfer of ownership is delayed.
Exactly. It's going to take place at a future date, or it relies on the fulfillment of certain conditions, like the table actually being built.
So during those 6 months, who owns the wood and the half-finished table?
The carpenter does.
So if the carpenter's workshop burns down in month 3, that is the carpenter's problem. I don't lose anything.
Right, because you never had the title. The carpenter bears the loss because they still hold the ownership.
That's a relief.
Yeah, in an agreement to sell, they can't demand that you pay for ashes. But conversely, if the seller just decides to breach the contract and sell your half-finished table to someone else.
I can't sue to get the physical table back, can I? Because I never owned it.
Exactly. You can only sue the carpenter for financial damages for breaking the promise.
This raises a massive, almost existential question. If risk follows ownership, exactly when does that magical transfer of ownership happen?
That is the multi-million-dollar question in commercial litigation. Whole armies of lawyers make their living arguing about the exact millisecond ownership changes hands.
I bet. So how does the Sale of Goods Act handle it?
The framework, specifically sections 18 through 25, gives us a very specific roadmap. And it all depends on the physical nature of the goods. Let's start with specific goods.
Specific goods, so goods that are uniquely identifiable.
Yes, goods identified and agreed upon at the very moment the contract of sale is made.
Like me walking onto a used car lot and saying, I want to buy that specific 2018 red sedan with that specific VIN number.
Perfect example. There's only one of it in the world. For a specific good like that, sections 19 to 22 say the property passes exactly when the parties intend for it to pass.
The law just honors our intention.
It does. It treats business people as adults. It looks at the terms of your contract to figure out what you both wanted.
But let's be real, most of the time we don't write down our intentions. Like if I buy a used lawnmower for my neighbor over the fence, we aren't drafting a 12-page contract.
No, you just shake hands. And when intentions aren't explicit, the law provides default rules.
Okay, what's the default rule for my neighbor's lawnmower?
Under Section 20, if you have an unconditional contract for specific goods, and those goods are in a deliverable state, the property passes the absolute moment the contract is made.
So the moment we shake hands over the fence, I own the lawnmower.
The moment you agree, it completely ignores payment and delivery.
Wait, even if I say, I'll pay you next Friday and I'll roll it into my garage tomorrow.
Irrelevant. The deal was struck, the lawnmower is sitting right there, you are the owner right now.
So if lightning strikes the lawnmower that night in his yard, I owe him the money and I just have a charred piece of metal.
Exactly. But you used a very specific phrase earlier. You said, what if it's not in a deliverable state?
Yeah, what if the lawnmower is broken and the deal is that I buy it for $50, but my neighbor has to replace the spark plug first?
Section 21 covers this beautifully. If the seller has to do something to put the goods into a deliverable state, property does not pass. It remains with the seller.
That makes sense. I shouldn't take the risk while the engine is torn apart, but when does it finally pass?
2 things must happen. First, the thing must actually be done. The spark plug must be installed.
And the second thing?
The buyer must have noticed that it is done.
Yeah.
You don't secretly become the owner while you were asleep just because your neighbor finished the repair at midnight.
I have to be notified.
Right. You only become the owner when your neighbor leans over the fence the next morning and says, the spark plug is in, she's ready. That notification triggers the transfer.
I love how granular that is. But that entire framework assumes we know exactly what item we're talking about, the red car.
Yeah.
a specific lawnmower.
Yes, what if you don't?
Right. What if I run a commercial bakery and I call up a sugar supplier and say, I need to buy 1,000 pounds of sugar, and they have a giant silo holding 50,000 pounds?
Okay, now we have moved from specific goods to what the texts call unascertained goods, covered under sections 18 and 23.
And the rules are different.
Vastly different, because you cannot own something that hasn't been identified. No property transfers unless and until the goods are ascertained.
So it's the difference between walking into a bakery and saying, I'll buy a donut from that tray versus saying, I'll buy that specific chocolate donut right there.
That is a brilliant analogy. If you just ask for a donut, you do not own any donut on that tray.
I just have a contract for donut.
Exactly. You only gain ownership when the baker physically picks one specific donut up and puts it in a bag for you. That act is called appropriation.
Appropriation, taking the abstract quantity and tying it to a physical reality.
And the law requires unconditional appropriation. The sources highlight a pivotal 1947 case here, Nankan v. Musarai Sugar Co.
Oh, that dealt with exactly my sugar scenario, right?
It did. The court held that property doesn't pass until the goods are ascertained and irrevocably appropriated to the contract.
Wait, what does irrevocably mean here? If the supplier bags up my 1,000 pounds of sugar and sets it on their dock, is that unconditional appropriation?
Usually, yes. It means the seller has committed those specific bags to your contract and cannot legally swap them out for different bags without your permission.
So if they print shipping labels with my bakery's address on them, title transfers.
Yes. If the delivery truck crashes, the sugar was yours.
But if they just have unlabeled bags sitting in their warehouse, they could theoretically give them to someone else.
Correct. So it's not appropriated to you yet. Risk stays with the seller. If the warehouse burns down, they lose their inventory, and they still owe you sugar.
This invisible legal boundary is fascinating. Let me throw one more scenario at you. The try before you buy model.
Goods on approval. Section 24.
Yeah. If I order expensive boots online and the website says try them risk-free for 30 days, when do I actually own those boots?
The property passes to you, the buyer, when you signify your approval to the seller.
So if I email customer service and say, these are great, I'm keeping them, that email is the moment title transfers.
Yes, but what if you never email them, but you decide to wear the boots out in a rainstorm to a music festival?
Well, I've completely ruined their resale value. I can't return them now.
Exactly. If you do any act that adopts the transaction, like destroying them or selling them to a friend, you have implicitly signified your approval.
So the title flashes from the retailer to me. What if I just leave them in the box by my door and forget about them?
If you retain them without giving notice of rejection and the 30 days expire, ownership passes to you silently at midnight on day 31.
Wow. Okay. So we have this incredibly granular logic to pinpoint ownership. But here is a massive, glaring assumption beneath everything we just talked about.
Which is?
We have been assuming that the seller actually has the right to sell the goods in the first place.
We are assuming the seller is the true legal owner.
But what if they aren't? What happens when the person standing across the counter from you is a thief or a scammer?
This brings us face to face with Section 27 and one of the most famous ironclad rules in all of property law, a Latin maxim called Nemo dat quod non habet.
Nemo dat quod non habet. It translates to, no one can give what they do not have.
It's pure logic. A seller cannot transfer a better title to goods than they themselves possess.
Think of title as a physical object, like a golden ticket.
Exactly. If I do not have the golden ticket, I cannot hand it to you. If I break into your house and steal your watch, my legal title to that watch is zero. I am a thief.
If you then sell it to a stranger on the street, even if they pay fair market price and act in good faith, their title is also zero.
Yes.
Wait, if I buy a stolen watch at a pawn shop, I have a receipt. Doesn't my legitimate commercial transaction overwrite the original theft?
It absolutely does not.
Yeah.
The true owner's property rights are absolute. They can track down that watch, and the law will force you to hand it over.
So what does this all mean for me, the innocent buyer? Am I left completely empty-handed?
You are. Your only legal recourse is to try to track down the thief who sold it to you and sue them for a breach of the implied condition of title.
Which is a joke, right? The thief is a ghost. That feels incredibly harsh on the consumer.
It is harsh.
I mean, if I have to fear someone confiscating my stuff, I'm never going to buy anything secondhand again.
And that realization is exactly why commercial law is so fascinating. You've articulated the fundamental tension at the heart of the economy.
Between protecting private property and ensuring commercial certainty.
Exactly. If the Nemo Dat rule was absolute, with zero exceptions, commerce would freeze. So the law has to bend.
It creates exceptions where a non-owner can actually pass a good title. Let's explore these because this is where the drama really lies.
The most common one is the sale by a mercantile agent, a professional middleman.
Like an art dealer in a gallery or a broker at a used car dealership, they sell things belonging to other people.
Right. If the true owner gives their painting to an art dealer and the dealer sells it in the ordinary course of business, the buyer gets a valid title.
But if the owner gave permission, where is the conflict?
The conflict arises when the agent goes rogue. Say the owner says, "Do not sell this for less than $50,000.
And the dealer is desperate for cash, so they sell it to me for $10,000 and flee the country.
Exactly. The true owner tracks you down and demands the painting back. Under strict Nemo Dat, you'd have to give it back.
But under the mercantile agent exception, I get to keep it.
Yes. The law looks at it and says the true owner chose to trust this agent. You, the innocent buyer, paid in good faith. The true owner bears the risk of their chosen agent's betrayal.
That makes perfect sense. It protects the integrity of the marketplace.
Our sources cite Folks v. King from 1923 to illustrate this. It involved a car sold by a rogue agent below the authorized price. The court definitively ruled for the innocent buyer.
Okay, what is another exception? Because not everyone is a professional agent.
Section 28 gives us sale by a joint owner. Imagine 3 siblings inherit a grand piano. They are joint owners.
One sibling keeps the piano in their living room with the other's permission.
Right. That sibling has sole physical possession, but only a fraction of the property right. Now, what if they secretly sell it to a local musician and pocket the money?
The other siblings demand it back, but let me guess, the law protects the musician.
It does. If a joint owner has sole possession by permission and sells to a bona fide purchaser, the purchaser gets full title to the piano.
It seems the law protects the innocent buyer who operates in good faith and punishes the person who created the risky situation.
That principle is most evident in Section 29, sale under a voidable contract, a contract tainted by fraud.
Give me an example of how that leads to a Nemo Dat situation.
Let's say a scammer tricks you into selling them your laptop with a counterfeit cashier's check. You hand it over. A few days later, you find out it's fake.
So the contract is voidable. I have the right to demand my laptop back.
But by the time you do, the scammer has already sold it to an unsuspecting college student.
This is where timing is everything.
Exactly. Because you hadn't yet voided the contract when the scammer sold it, the scammer technically held a fragile, voidable title.
And the law says the third party acquires a completely good title. So the student keeps my laptop.
The student keeps the laptop. You are left to pursue the scammer.
Brutal for me, but I see why it's necessary. Is there a scenario where the true owner is just completely at fault for the confusion?
Yes, that leads to estoppel. It's a sweeping, equitable principle. If the true owner's conduct leads a buyer to believe the seller had authority, the owner is prevented from denying it.
How would I accidentally lead a buyer to think that?
Let's look at the incredible case law. Eastern Distributors v. Goldring from 1957. Imagine you own a delivery van and you need cash, so you hatch a scheme with a sketchy car dealer.
Oh, I'm already anticipating disaster.
You fill out fake paperwork, making it look like the dealer owns your van, so he can get a loan using it as collateral.
I just handed him a loaded gun.
You did. And he ignores your secret plan, drives the van onto his lot, and sells it to an innocent buyer named Goldring. Then he disappears with the money.
So I tracked down Goldring and yelled, "Nemo Dat, give it back!"
And the court brings down the hammer on you. They say, no, you are stopped. You actively armed the dealer with the appearance of ownership. Goldring gets to keep the van.
That is a brilliant legal mechanism. We are holding you to the lie you created, but we have to look at the dark side of Nemo Dat too.
Yes, the syllabus requires us to examine a case where the exceptions do not apply. Butterworth v. Kingsway Motors. It is a tangled nightmare.
Tell me the story. How bad can it get?
It involves a car on a hire purchase agreement, meaning you are essentially renting it, and you don't own it until the final payment. The finance company owns it.
Okay, so the driver has possession, but zero property rights.
Right. A person named R had this car. Long before paying it off, R illegally sold it to X.
R is our thief.
Yes. X sold it to Y. Yes, sold it to a dealership called Kingsway Motors. And Kingsway sold it to an innocent consumer named Butterworth.
A chain of 4 separate sales. And none of them actually owned the car.
Nemo Dat strikes 4 times in a row. The water at the top of the river was poisoned. None of the exceptions applied.
So the finance company tracks it down and repos it from Butterworth's driveway?
That poor guy. He was furious. So he sued Kingsway Motors for a total failure of consideration. You promised me a car, but legally gave me nothing.
Did the dealership try to argue he at least got some use out of it?
They tried, but the court held that the fundamental condition of sale is the right to sell. Kingsway had no title. Butterworth recovered every single penny.
And the whole house of cards collapsed backward. It's a stark reminder that if that invisible chain of title breaks, the consequences are catastrophic.
Which brings us to a major pivot in our journey. We figured out the abstract title, but eventually the physical reality has to catch up.
Right. Section 4 of our deep dive, delivery of goods. Sections 31 to 44. The texts define delivery as the voluntary transfer of possession.
But the physical movement of a box across a counter is just a fraction of what delivery means in commerce.
Yeah, if delivery only meant physical movement, global logistics would be impossible.
Exactly. So the law recognizes three distinct types of delivery: actual, constructive, and symbolic.
Actual delivery is easy. I hand you the coffee cup. But constructive delivery. How do you deliver something without moving it?
Constructive delivery happens when the physical location doesn't change, but legal possession does. It involves a third party, like a warehouse manager.
I need an industrial scale example.
Imagine you own 10,000 tons of grain in a Chicago silo. You sell it to a buyer in New York.
If the law required actual delivery, they'd have to drive trains to Chicago and physically move it. An absurd waste of money.
Right. So you contact the silo manager, the manager crosses out your name in their ledger and writes in the buyer's name. They acknowledge they hold it for the buyer now.
The moment that acknowledgement happens, possession transfers. 10,000 tons changed hands legally without moving an inch.
Incredibly efficient.
What about symbolic delivery?
That involves handing over a token, like the keys to a warehouse, or, more importantly, a document of title.
Like a bill of lading, right?
Yes. When a manufacturer in Asia loads electronics onto a ship bound for LA, the captain issues a bill of lading.
That paper is a receipt.
It's more than a receipt. Whoever holds it has the absolute right to claim the cargo. The manufacturer can sell the goods mid-ocean just by handing over the paper.
It's like legal alchemy. The paper turns into the cargo. Now, there are strict default rules for delivery, like payment and delivery being concurrent conditions under Section 32.
Yes, it's a Mexican standoff. You don't get the goods until you show the money, and vice versa.
And Section 35 says the seller isn't bound to deliver until the buyer applies for it. You can't just dump coal on someone's lawn unannounced.
Correct. But where the rules get genuinely rigid is how the law handles mistakes in quantity under Section 37.
Yes. I wanted to push back heavily on this. Let's say I order exactly 100 laptops for my startup. The turn arrives and they accidentally deliver 101 laptops.
Okay.
According to the Act, I have the right to reject the entire shipment, not just the one extra laptop, but all 101. That seems incredibly harsh.
It seems harsh to a consumer. But the 1930 Act was built for industrialists. The ripple effects of an overdelivery can be a nightmare.
How is an extra laptop a nightmare? I just say thanks.
Imagine it isn't a laptop. Imagine you order exactly 1,000 barrels of highly flammable chemicals because your specialized facility only holds exactly 1,000.
Ah, I see the problem. The supplier arrives with 1,050.
Where do you put the extra 50? If you leave them in the parking lot, you violate environmental laws. If you force them inside, it's a fire hazard.
And the buyer shouldn't have to bear the headache of the seller's mistake.
Exactly. The law says, we don't do close enough. If they deliver less, you can reject it. If they deliver more, you can reject the whole lot or just accept the contracted amount.
The power is in the buyer's hands. But what if goods are damaged in transit? Say, fresh fruit bruised on a train.
Under Section 40, if goods are delivered to a distant place, the buyer bears the risk of natural deterioration incidental to transit. Physics happens.
Okay, so we've navigated delivery. But what happens when the worst-case scenario unfolds? The seller delivers perfectly and the buyer's check bounces.
Or the buyer goes bankrupt. This brings us to the arsenal of the unpaid seller. Rights against the goods and rights against the buyer personally.
The Sale of Goods Act knows sellers take massive risks, so it defines an unpaid seller broadly in Section 45.
Very broadly. If you are short even $1 on a $100,000 invoice, you are an unpaid seller.
Or if a check bounces.
Instantly, you revert to that powerful status.
So I'm an unpaid seller. I want my property back. What weapons do I have against the goods themselves under Section 46?
You have three escalating weapons: lien, stoppage in transit, and resale. Let's start with the right of lien.
A lien is the legal right to retain physical possession until the price is paid. But wait, if it was an actual sale, the buyer is the owner, right?
This is the seller's superpower. Even if legal title has passed, if you still physically have the goods, you can lock the warehouse doors. You don't have to hand the buyer their property.
Possession is my leverage. But the weakness is, it's linked entirely to physical possession.
That's its fatal flaw. The moment you hand them to the buyer or a public carrier like a trucking company, your lien is dead.
Which sets up an incredibly tense scenario. I loaded $1 million of electronics onto a freight truck. It's driving down the interstate. And I find out the buyer filed for bankruptcy.
They are insolvent.
If I lost my lien, am I going to watch my inventory roll into bankruptcy court?
The Sale of Goods Act created a spectacular emergency mechanism, the right of stoppage in transit. You can contact the carrier and order them to stop and return the goods.
I can just hit the emergency brakes mid-journey.
Yes, but there are two absolute conditions. First, the goods must literally be in transit with an independent middleman, like FedEx.
What if the driver is a direct employee of the buyer?
Then delivery was legally complete at your loading dock. Transit never existed.
Okay, assuming it's FedEx, what's the second condition?
The buyer must be legally insolvent, not just late on a payment, but genuinely unable to pay debts. If you stop the goods and they are solvent, you breach the contract.
It's a high-stakes gamble. But if I get the goods back, I want cash, not electronics. What's my third weapon?
The right of resale under Section 54. You can liquidate the goods to a new buyer.
Here's where it gets really interesting. I can sell them even though the original buyer technically holds title.
Yes. If the goods are perishable, you sell immediately. If they are non-perishable, you must give the original buyer clear notice.
Why do I have to give notice? They broke the contract.
It gives them one last chance to pay, and it solidifies your right to claim damages. If you sell it for 20 grand less, you can sue the original buyer for the shortfall.
But what if I sell it for a profit, say 20 grand more?
If you gave proper notice, you get to keep the profit. The breaching buyer forfeits any right to the upside.
Wow, it pays to follow the rules. What if the goods are already delivered and consumed and then they refuse to pay?
Then you pivot to rights against the buyer personally, sued for price. The abstract transfer of title is enough to demand the money in court, like in Valpy v. Gibson.
And I can also sue for damages for non-acceptance or sue for interest on the unpaid price.
Exactly. The seller is armed to the teeth.
But buyers get screwed over too. So let's flip the script and look at remedies for breach from the buyer's perspective.
The law's philosophy is to put the injured party back in the exact financial position they would have been in if the contract was performed.
Let's talk about anticipatory breach. Section 60. I order winter coats for October 1st. On August 15th, the factory says they can't do it.
You have a strategic choice. You can accept the breach immediately and sue for damages based on the August 15th market price.
Or I can refuse their cancellation and hold them to the October 1st deadline.
You can keep the contract alive. It gives them a chance to fix their factory, but it's a massive risk. If a war breaks out and disrupts shipping in September, the contract is frustrated and you get nothing.
High stakes indeed. But say October 1st arrives, no coats. I sue for damages. The texts emphasize a duty on me, though. Mitigation of loss.
You cannot just sit back, let your retail empire burn, and sue for lost profits. You must make a reasonable effort to buy replacement coats on the open market.
The law doesn't reward apathy. But what if I'm buying a custom, one-of-a-kind ship? I can't buy a replacement.
In rare cases, you petition for specific performance. The court bypasses damages and forces the seller to physically hand over the exact custom ship.
The ultimate trump card. One final scenario. The goods are delivered, but they're defective. A breach of warranty.
A breach of condition lets you reject the goods. A breach of warranty means you must keep them, but you can sue for damages or a price reduction.
And the case of Mason v. Birmingham illustrates this perfectly. A woman bought a secondhand typewriter, spent her own money fixing it up, and then the police seized it because it was stolen.
Emodat strikes again. She sued the seller.
The seller argued they only owed her the purchase price, not the repair money.
But the court awarded her the repair money too. Upgrading a secondhand item is a foreseeable consequence. The damages safety net must cover all natural ripple effects of the breach.
It's a brilliantly constructed system. And that brings us to the end of our journey through this framework.
It really is an incredible architecture of human intention and consequence.
Next time you hit buy now on a website, I want you to think about the invisible machinery churning beneath your feet. We decoded res paired domino, the rules of delivery, and the drama of stoppage in transit.
And we explored the impossible tension of Nemo dat quod non habet, protecting true owners while keeping capitalism moving.
The Sale of Goods Act was forged in 1930, yet its principles flawlessly govern billions of transactions today.
It's a masterpiece of pragmatic legislation.
But as we wrap up, I leave you with a provocative thought. These laws were written for a physical world. Sacks of sugar, cars, ships.
An inherently physical paradigm.
But today, you buy digital software, in-game items, crypto, things made entirely of math.
It's true.
So how well does a 1930 framework hold up when the goods don't physically exist? If a hacker steals your virtual sword and sells it to an innocent gamer, does the ironclad rule of Nemo Dat apply in the metaverse? Think about it.